Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 ah, yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. And you will know.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Medical Marijuana Radio for Saturday, March the 16th, 2013. I'm your host, Larry Love, and tonight we're going to be speaking about seniors and medical marijuana with Beth Fisher of Michigan, who is an advocate for seniors and is going to have some very interesting things to say, and we'll get to that about 20 minutes after the hour. I do want to do the strain report quickly. Well, not quickly, but first, let's say. And then we'll read a little news, and I want to make a comment about last week's show. So, anyway, the strain report for New Mexico. Coming up this coming week, Canaceutics will have CBD critical mass, OG18, shit, and of course my dad, who was a musician back from the 30s to the 60s, he used to say, "Oh, that's good shit," but they've actually named something after that statement, and the strain is called shit. We'll have to call them and see what the genetics are on that. Canaceutics will also have lemon skunk, Holy Grail Kush, and Critical Jack. High Desert Relief this coming week will have Blue Dream, which is a sativa at $13 a gram. Bubba Double Snowman, an indica at $10 a gram. Island Sweet Skunk, sativa at $13 a gram. Lemon Tree, an indica at $12 a gram. And New York City Diesel, a sativa at $13 a gram. High Desert Relief will have some edibles available. Almond Rucka, $8 each. Betty Pop, 30 milligram THC sucker, which is sour apple or blue raspberry, $5 each. Butter, 3 ounces for $8. That sounds like a good deal. Gold bars at 10 each. Muddy Buddies at $5, and Twisted Pretzels at $5 each. And that's High Desert Relief. Moving over to MedZen, Bubba Kush, Willie Frost, The Perps, Up, Dutch Cheese, Lemon OG, Lemon Kush, and Green Crackle. That's from MedZen. Minerva will have Alaskan Thunderfuck, GPOG, Harlequin, which is a high CBD strain, as well as the Alaskan Thunderfuck, by the way. Jack the Ripper, Kaboom, Master Kush, Purple Mr. Nice, and Zazobra. New Mexican up here in Santa Fe this week will have Raspberry Kush, Shiva Skunk, AK-47, Mazar, Super Silver Haze. They also have Pressed Keef Hash, which is Trainwreck and Medicine Woman at 2-gram puck for $70. Loose Keef Hash Topper. They have LA Confidential, which is 1 gram for $35. Black Temple Hash, which is made from Blue Dream, 1 gram, $35. And Popcorn Buds, which are AK-47, Mazar, and Super Silver Haze. That is New Mexican. Also up here in Santa Fe from New Mexico Top Organics, White Widow, Jack Star, RX, and X's Gum. That's from New Mexico Top Organics. Now, that's the strain report for this week. I want to touch base briefly on, I want to throw something out at you. Last week we had Ken and Heather from Green Halo in Arizona on. And on Friday I read an article which talked about Green Halo being one of the only approved kitchens to make edibles in Arizona. And they're talking about labeling. Okay, now here is the label. I'm going to read this to you. Here's the label that the Arizona Department of Health Services makes them put on edibles. Okay, Arizona Department of Health Services warning: marijuana use can be addictive and can impair an individual's ability to drive a motor vehicle or operate heavy machinery. Marijuana smoke contains carcinogens and can lead to an increased risk of cancer, tachycardia, hypertension, heart attack, and lung infection. Keep out of the reach of children. Now, I get to keep out of the reach of children, but for them to say that marijuana smoke contains carcinogens, which there's no proof of, increased risks of cancer, well, we all know that it's killing cancer cells. Hypertension, heart attack, lung infection. I've read you articles before about how there is no evidence that there's any effect except for a positive effect in the lungs. Actually, people have better lung function who smoke cannabis. So again, this is outrageous. I don't know how they can put up with having that on a label in Arizona, and I hope that they will do something about getting that changed. It's absolutely horrendous. Anyway, we'll be right back. Okay, right before we read the news here, there is one announcement that I would like to make, if I can find that announcement. Hang on, please. Tomorrow, March 17th, at 1:30 p.m., they're running the, I think it's a premiere of a movie that's called Code of the West. And Jordan Smith of the Austin Chronicle says Code of the West is a must-see for anyone interested in drug reform and patients' or states' rights. Liliana Segura of The Nation says eye-opening and gripping. Philip Smith of the Drug War Chronicle says powerful, enlightening, and beautiful. Watch it now. So Code of the West will be playing tomorrow afternoon at 1:30 p.m. That's March 17th at the Guild Cinema, 3405 Central Northeast in Albuquerque. If you want more information or tickets, go to www.guildcinema.com. After the film, this will be great, there's going to be a post-film discussion hosted by Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, that's LEAP. These are a group of law enforcement and former law enforcement people that are for cannabis. Also speaking afterwards and taking questions, the New Mexico Medical Cannabis Patients Alliance and the Drug Policy Alliance, that's the DPA. So again, that's 1:30 in Albuquerque tomorrow, 3405 Central Northeast at the Guild Cinema.
I've got news for you.
Okay, I've got news for you. I'm going to read a little news for you. This is a press release that I found on NBCnews.com the other day. It's dated the 12th of March this year, and it says that the federal government reports, again, the federal government reports marijuana effective in combating certain cancers, reports the ADSI. Los Angeles, March 12th, this is a Globe News Wire. The following is a statement by advocates for the disabled and seriously ill. And I'm sorry. In a recent report, the National Cancer Institute, the NCI, part of the federal government's National Institute of Health, the NIH, stated that marijuana inhibited the survival of both estrogen receptor positive and estrogen receptor negative breast cancer cell lines. The same report showed marijuana slows or stops the growth of certain lung cancer cells and suggests that marijuana may provide risk reduction and treatment of colorectal cancer. Referring to the NCI report, patient rights attorney Matthew Pappas said, "The federal government's continuing attack on people prescribed medical cannabis by their doctors is hypocritical, considering the benefits reported by its own National Cancer Institute." PAPIS represents patients in defending their right to reasonably obtain medical marijuana. The patients contend that the federal government and various municipalities are trying to prevent them from obtaining cannabis for a medical purpose in a direct contravention of state law. Cities that ban dispensaries are denying patients the ability to obtain medicine the federal government's National Institute of Health says fights cancer, and they're doing it with the Obama administration's help. Recently, the city of Los Angeles repealed its ban on medical marijuana collectives after Bill Rosendahl, a member of the city council, diagnosed with cancer and prescribed medical marijuana, said to fellow council members about the ban, "You want to kill me? You want to throw me under the bus?" The NCI report also examined whether patients who smoke marijuana, rather than ingesting it orally, are exposed to higher risk of lung and certain digestive system cancers. According to the government, 19 studies failed to demonstrate the statistically significant associations between marijuana inhalation and lung cancer. The report also identified a separate study of 611 lung cancer patients that showed marijuana was not associated with an increased risk of lung cancer or upper aerodigestive tract cancers, and found no positive associations with any cancer type. In the area of prostate cancer, the NCI report was inconclusive and suggests further research was necessary. In its report, the National Cancer Institute also identified a study of intratumoral injection of delta-9 THC in patients with recurrent, I'm sorry folks on this one, glioblastoma that showed tumor reduction in the test participants. There's a whole bunch more, and what I'd like to do, instead of just reading it all to you, tell you to go to NBCnews.com and look for the article that says federal government reports marijuana effective in combating certain cancers, and you can read the rest of that. But once again, the federal government just being hypocritical and saying one thing and doing another. Something is obviously going to have to be done soon. Now, I had the opportunity to speak this morning on another radio show called High Noon, and I had the opportunity to speak to none other than Rick Simpson. And let me just stop this bed. It's about 7 minutes long, and I'm going to play it for you now. So this is me. The quality is not that great. Talking to Rick Simpson this morning on blogspot.com, which is another place to listen to radio shows. And here we go.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Rick, thank you for your passion, for the oil and getting all the information out to everybody. My question really has to do with the extraction. Do you get the same benefits if you use a Everclear extraction as naphtha or butane?
Well, yes, basically you'll get the same benefits from the oil, but I don't like using Everclear because it has so much water in it. Like Everclear is usually 95% or 90%, so that other 5 or 10% is water, and it makes it a bit less effective as a solvent. And the end of the process, you have all this excess water that you have to evaporate off, which can take much longer. So normally when I produce the oil, if I have a dry pound, within about 3 hours, the oil is sitting there ready to use. But if you have to, if you got a lot of water in it, it may take a few more hours than that before you can, use it as a medication. You have to get rid of that water.
Yes, I totally understand the evaporation, process that one has to go through for sure. Rick, what do you think is the best way to talk to people to get them to try this? I have several close friends that are suffering right now with different kinds of cancer, and trying to talk them into doing this is really the hardest part. So what do you think are the main points to touch on so that people will turn themselves over to the oil and try this?
Well, the main point is the science is all there. If they just would simply go on the internet and do a simple search, there's so much evidence out there now backing up everything we're saying. But I don't know, so many people seem to be, completely brainwashed when it comes to this subject. I've walked into so many situations, where, part of the family would be in agreement, that the patient should take the oil, and the other part of the family would be dead against it. And I hate those situations, because these people, that don't take the time to understand this, and fight against it, they are literally killing their own loved ones. We're not, what we're bringing to the public is the simple truth. And, it's like I said, if they would just do a bit of research. But, it seems that so many people are so closed-minded. And the way I look at it, I've dealt with thousands of people. And the way I look at it, in some situations, they won't do a thing to help themselves until they're suffering so badly that they have nowhere to turn, and then finally they'll go to the oil, which is what they should have done in the first place. But, it's going to take time, but we are making, giant strides every day, and so many more people are using the oil.
Absolutely.
So don't despair. Just keep telling them the truth. This is what I've always told family members. I said, look, you may understand this, and you probably do know that this is the best medication. But, if the patient doesn't take the oil, at least you did your best. You told them the truth. If they don't react to that truth, well, it's really not your fault. But it can be very depressing being a family member and watching someone that you love die and have your whole family stand against the one medicine that can save them.
Right.
I leave a little bit out and see if they take it anyway. Sometimes curiosity will overcome it.
That might not be a bad idea.
Kind of like leaving cookies out for Santa. Sometimes they're gone.
Rick, another question I have for you is, I've counseled several people who have gone through your process, and some people, live alone, and I think that they need to have somebody with them when they're going through the especially the 1 month, but the 3 month process. At some point in time, people do, when the dosages get high, they do have some uncomfortable feelings, maybe too high, hallucinating, and so forth. So what is your best advice in dealing with a person at that point in time when they really, they don't feel good? They're hallucinating or tripping a little bit.
I don't know. I've been eating that oil for 12 years myself, and I've never hallucinated on it. And believe me, some of the doses that I took, I should have. But, it's a lot of times it's just getting people comfortable with the oil. And so many people tend to overdose in the beginning, and that scares them. But if they just follow the protocol that we set up, the little tiny doses and then increasing your dosage every 4 days, usually people don't have any problems at all if they do that. But,
at some point,
I just tell people...
I was going to say, at some point obviously there's a tolerance at some point that you work yourself through, and you get to that point, there's a tolerance, and then, of course, I think it's probably smooth sailing. And one more question, and then I'll let somebody else get in here. What about the maintenance doses after the protocol is over? What's a good maintenance dose?
Well, just like a drop a night, like anywhere between 1 to 2 grams a month. Just a good size, a good drop at night to help you sleep. That's a good maintenance dose. And that's really, I think, all people need. But, you do, if you're, I think it's best to bring your body, we're all, as we age, we all have problems, starting to occur. So it's best to take, even if you don't have terminal cancer, it's best to take a full 60-gram treatment to bring your body back to a state of good health. And then once you're at that state, then you can just drop it back to a maintenance dose and continue that. If you're growing your own material and making your own medicine, well, you've got free medicine basically for the rest of your life. And we can all I think we can all do this. But anybody that, if you know someone, that's starting the oil and they are living alone, I'd like to see people like that checked on, or preferably even have somebody stay with them, in the beginning, because, it takes a little while to get used to this medication. But the best advice I can usually give people when they're starting this is just, lay down and enjoy the ride, because it's not going to hurt you.
And this feeling will pass, and you will feel better later. So, all right, thank you so much, Rick. You have a wonderful day today, and I thank you for all of your hard work over the years.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was Rick Simpson this morning at noon Eastern Time on a show on blogspot.com, which is a place where people have lots of radio shows that are very interesting. The show is called High Noon, and it's on at, again, noon East Coast time. I'm not sure whether every week Rick Simpson is on or not, but if he is, that's fantastic. And I'm going to try to get him on our show for an hour, so you people out there, our listeners, can call in and ask him questions as well. But it was really a thrill to speak with him. He's helped so many people, and we're learning every day about what the Rick Simpson oil RSO, as they call it. And hang on, here's Beth. Hi, Beth, is that you? You're on Medical Marijuana Radio. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And so tonight, I hope you were able to hear Rick Simpson, who is a senior who's helping so many people. I had the opportunity to speak with him on another show this morning. But Beth, give us a little background. You did send me a bio and everything, but I couldn't open it. So give us a little background on you and tell us about your organization for seniors, please.
Yes, my organization is Senior Medical Cannabis, and we provide seniors with a wide range of information and supports relating to medical cannabis. We provide legal, legislative, medical, political, and social information for seniors.
So
we're essentially can I say the AARP of MedPop?
Okay, that sounds good. We just lost. We just lost the call, so let's just wait a second, and I think Beth will call back. These technical things do happen. As I spoke with Beth last week, she also has some ideas about taking seniors on some... Here we go. Okay, did you hit a wrong button there, Beth?
I have no idea, but
Okay.
It's all good.
Oh, yeah, it's all
but
good.
I'm back on, so...
All right. So go on. Tell us a little bit. Let me ask you this, okay? And then, of course, fill in whatever you would like to speak about in regards to seniors. But when I just spoke to Rick Simpson this morning and asked him, how do you convince someone to try this oil treatment, which obviously can cost thousands of dollars, but may hopefully cure your cancers? How do you get seniors who have never had cannabis before to try this?
And what did he say?
Well, what did he say? Well, he was talking about, doing your best, and tell them about the science of cannabis, and all you can do is present the evidence and try to get your loved ones to try it. But it's really up to them to make the final decision. But I've had many patients at the dispensary that I worked for who were seniors and who had never had cannabis before, and it's a delicate process to get them to try it the first time, especially edibles, because they've never had it before. If they have a bad experience the first time, they might not go back to it. So what are you finding as far as dealing with seniors? How receptive are they?
Well, I would not start out with a medical, nor would I start out with vaporization or smoke. I would start out, most of the seniors I've started with start with rubs, ointments, tinctures, things like that. And from there you look at taking next steps. But if they know that they can apply it, and they also know that the seniors know that they aren't going to be having a psychoactive experience the first time out, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. They don't really know what to expect from cannabis when they try it the first time if you're smoking it. I try to get them to take one or two puffs and then that's it, and I go over what might happen to them, how they may feel, and what to do if they're uncomfortable. Edibles, obviously, as you said, is not a great thing to start with. However, certain situations, some people don't want to smoke, they don't want to vaporize, so you have to sort of, start them with some little pinches of brownies or so forth.
Yes, absolutely. And then at that point, then they can take just a little bit and see what happens, and then it starts that way, and most seniors are pretty open to things that will alleviate the pain. Now, seniors that have more critical issues, cell abnormalities, they're more willing and open to try things that will eliminate the problem. And that's where the Rick Simpson oil comes in. It's miraculous.
Yes, it really is, and I can't wait for the next couple of years to go by. I hope it goes by slowly, but as far as getting people to know that this oil is really quite spectacular. And one of the things I wanted to say to Rick this morning on that call was the fact that I think one of the problems with cannabis is that it's so good for such a wide range of conditions that I think some people think we're full of crap when we tell them it's good for this, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, CP, MS. It's such a wide range that some people think we're crazy. How can one thing, a natural grown plant, do so much for so many different diseases? So it's good that it does, but again, some people are just a little bit leery that it just helps so much.
It does. And there are some seniors, Larry, that are much older than you and I, that have 20, 30 years on us, that remember the time before the darkness.
Right.
And they do know, and they do remember their parents and their grandparents using cannabis. They do remember identification of the old bottles that we see. But I think the biggest one is from Merck for a sativa, and we see it on Wiki, we see it in other places. But they do remember those. And that makes it easier for them to understand what went on. They can identify with it, and they're more open to it.
Yes, absolutely. Educating not only just seniors or patients in general, but doctors need to be educated. So many of them just don't know anything about this oil or using it, smoking or vaporizing. That education is the biggest thing that we all have to do out there. And so, do you hold any kind of seminars for seniors where you talk to a group and get them to understand what this can, or how this can benefit them?
Absolutely. I talk with seniors at senior centers due to the fear that's been instilled in nursing facilities. There are some administrators that will let me in and let me talk, but most administrators are under the guise of, if we publicly allow medical cannabis to come in, well, then the feds will come in and take away our license. And I hear that so often. But there are others that quietly welcome in. Mostly when I go into those facilities, it's seniors who have been using medical cannabis or children of the seniors who have been using medical cannabis, and then they convey this is what they want for their parent. And at that point, then privately and quietly, that's where those vape pens work, especially the O pen out of Organolabs. That they can quietly use it, and then they receive the relief.
I haven't heard of the O pen. What's the name of the company that sells that one?
Organolabs. Let me pull it up for you and send it over to you.
Oh, sure, that'd be great.
Okay, keep going.
Sure, yeah. There's obviously, I don't know if you heard a show a few weeks ago. We had Gary from Delta 9 Vapes on, and they produce the Omicron and the OFOS and the Persei, and they were the guys that developed the little cartridge. And for people that are on video here, this is that pen with a nice cartridge on it that oil goes into, and it's quite effective. The O pen that you're looking up right now, is that for oil or is that for bud?
That is for that's oil. That's a cartridge out of Organolabs in Denver, and it really is very discreet. And it's once again, then that goes back to that issue of state rights. What I can get in Michigan may not be what you're able to get, may not be what people are able to get in California. I spoke with a gentleman who we talk a lot, and he has a lot of history with medical marijuana, and yet for his knees, he can't get the level of medication that he needs. And he's in California, where you would think that he would get a bevy of medicinal remedies for his knees.
What part
so
of California?
So what I can get it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what part of California is this gentleman in? Because I'm from California. I spent 30 years there, and I know that there's all kinds of different oils that you can buy and capsules. Pure Gold is a capsule that is available at many places in California. So, what was it that he wasn't able to find? It's interesting to me.
He wasn't able to find rubs for his knees. And I connected him with a couple of people and sent that over. But he has history of being in the presence of medical marijuana for many, many years, and yet with all his knowledge and connections, he couldn't find what he needed out there. Now, if he had taken a flight over to Denver, where I believe, I think the Denver Boulder area and Colorado has really perfected that level of medicine using the THC element, that he could find that there. Or if he went over to Oregon, where they're doing, I think that they're really focusing on purity issues in Oregon, he would be able to access different things. But once again, it's a state rights issue.
Right.
It's almost as if, that there's borders there. The walls are put up at each state sign. And we know that that's the case because if you're driving, for instance, there was a news clip that people who are leaving Colorado with Colorado license plates and going to Idaho or Iowa or Nebraska are getting pulled over.
Right.
I mean, there is even that one of the lady leaving Ohio, and she had a Buckeye license plate, and she was pulled over. It's just getting crazy on what we're doing with state rights.
Right. Well, and the I'm sorry, but the governments of these states, they are concerned about DUI, and of course, there's no way to tell if someone is impaired by using marijuana. You could have smoked, 3 weeks ago and still have X amount of nanograms in you, and you might get pulled over, and they might say you're impaired, but they can't prove that you're impaired. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to wash out with the legalization in Washington and Colorado and so forth. But let me just give a suggestion to people like your friend that couldn't find the topicals. I make my own in a way. I mean, I take like some moisturizer cream that you might get from you can go buy it, but you can also get some free ones at hotels when you're out traveling. And I have some oil. I'm able to make my own oil. It's not terribly hard, but if you can get the oil, you can actually mix it in to some moisturizer type cream, and I've been using it and applying it, and it's quite effective. So that might be something for your friend when he is unable to find the topicals that he wants.
I will let him know. That's a great idea. I will let him know.
Fantastic.
So, what else would you like to talk about tonight?
Well, anything that you want to talk about, Beth. I know that you mentioned to me that you would like to take some seniors on some trips. Tell me about that.
Well, thank you. Starting in late May, June, we are going to be having the senior cannabis, and we're calling it boot camp. But it's an education vacation where seniors will be flying into the Boulder area, but you've got to fly into Denver. But spending 4 days in Boulder, learning, trying, seeing, asking questions, becoming familiar and feeling and becoming comfortable with medicinal marijuana products. And it's a 4-day, you're learning, you're relaxing, you're experimenting, you're trying to figure out, you're adjusting your medication. That's essentially what you're doing. And then they go back to their states, and then they take that information with them. And it saves them, we figured out, it saves about 9 months plus in the learning curve, if not more, because they have the optimal product. They can try it. They don't have to go to a dispensary or go to a caregiver and then come back and then try it again, and then go back. Medication is adjusted there. They'll understand it, and yes, they can't take it back, but then they can go back and then obtain what they need in their various medical marijuana states.
Well, I talk about...
So we'll be starting that.
You're going to be starting that, you said, in May or June, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
We
yes.
talk
And
about...
we're going to continue it there.
We talk about dosage all the time. That's the most important thing, whether you're a senior or any age. Dosing yourself properly is really, really very important. You can overdo it to the point to where, you've taken care of the condition, your pain or whatever. But, the medication is expensive at $13 to $18 a gram around the country. And if you can find that dosage, you're going to save money. You're going to get more doses out of your grams of whether it's bud or oil or hash or whatever, once you find how much you need to take in order to feel better. And in the long run, it's the way to go. Some people, of course, just roll up a big fatty and pack a bowl and smoke the whole thing. And that's okay if you want to medicate that way, but you don't have to. You don't have to really lose. You don't have to use so much medicine to get where you need to be. So everybody out there, I've talked about it before, dose yourself properly, and you'll feel better. You'll be able to be more active and do things like that. What else would you like to touch on today, Beth?
Well, I'd like to piggyback just a second on what you spoke of, and I'd like to ask you a question tonight, Larry.
Sure.
You, at the dispensary level, how long did you think that learning curve time took place for seniors with the experience that you've had?
Well, I have counseled many seniors, and I start them off very, very light. 1 or 2 puffs, and I tell them to stop, wait 20 minutes, and see how you feel. If you don't feel anything, try another 1 or 2 puffs. But, when I was a kid, of course, in 1968, when I first started, and when I tried marijuana, I didn't feel anything for the first 10 times that I smoked it. But of course, the marijuana wasn't as good as it is now. So, if you're buying from a dispensary, which hopefully is growing really great cannabis, it's going to be very, very strong. So I just insist that they take 1 or 2 puffs and see how they feel, and take it from there. I would say, 3 or 4 times after some seniors try it, I think they probably have the knack of what they want. The tricky part is what you said earlier, and I agree with you. Starting someone on an edible is very, very tricky. You might feel so good. I've had a patient feel so good that they took more because they were so enthused. Well, my fibromyalgia, my pain has gone away. I'm going to take more. But what they don't understand is when you're eating an edible, there's sort of an escalation when you start feeling it to the point to where you could have 5 or 6 or 8 hours worth of relief and effect. So starting them gently and letting them know that if you do feel too high, the effect is too much for you and maybe you're tripping a little bit, you have to say a couple of things. This thing will pass. 2, no one has ever died from an overdose of cannabis. And 3, generally eat something usually sweet that will bring you back down to a more comfortable area. That's how I tell my patients who are just trying it for the first few times.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think that I don't think too many people have touched base on this, but I think it's almost the zen of cannabis. When you're understanding dosing and you're understanding what your particular individual body needs for that time, you begin to learn what is too much, and you learn what the signals are and what things you can do to kind of level that off.
Sure. And another problem...
You have to really spend some time.
Go ahead, spend some time. Go ahead, Beth.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that takes time.
Yeah. Oh,
it's not the first time. It's not the first month. It's not the first year. But if you work it, you'll understand what you need and how you need it. And that also comes into uniformity of dose.
Right.
So.
The other thing I let people know, whether they're seniors or younger, is that, you know, different strains obviously are going to have a different effect on you. And if you had, you know, Super Lemon Haze, which is a favorite of mine, the next time you go to the dispensary, it may not be there, and so you're going to have a different strain, and it's going to affect you in a different way. So you got to start all over again. Take 1 or 2 puffs, see how you feel. Every different strain and every edible that you eat, hopefully the edibles are getting more consistent now. I mean, if an edible says it's got 30 milligrams of THC in it, well, that should be fairly consistent all the time. But the strains, whether it's an indica or sativa, are going to affect patients differently. So every time everybody is trying a new strain, they sort of have to start all over again. But then once you find your dosage for that strain, you know how to take care of yourself.
You're exactly right. And then, Larry, as you know, that there are some people, and I'm one of them, that the indica dominant and the sativa dominant, the effects are switched.
You're
for
one
me,
of,
at least.
You know what? You are not alone. And
I'm one of those.
There are so many people. You know, it's unbelievable to me. And I'll tell you, the interesting thing is that I found with working with hundreds of patients over the last 2 years is that women are so much more in touch with their bodies than men. I've seen women take, 1 or 2 puffs, and within 15 seconds, they're able to feel the change. And you're right. So many people are flip-flopped on, taking a sativa to go to sleep when you would think that it's going to keep you awake. So you've run into that, I guess, with yourself, and it's common. You shouldn't feel, that something is wrong. It's just it's the way the human body is just so different. But we have these receptors in our bodies that the cannabis plant just latches onto, and that's what's helping so many people. So experimenting with the strains obviously is something that's really, really important, so that you are getting the right effect when you want it. If you, like yourself, Beth, you don't want to smoke an indica before you go to bed, when other people probably do, because you're what I call opposite George, according to the Seinfeld show, if you remember that one. One time George said, so that's the opposite George effect. So, I think that's interesting. And have you found the same thing, that women seem to be more in touch with the feelings of cannabis and even the weather? I've had women tell me, I can feel there's a storm coming because of how their body feels. It's quite amazing.
It just might be the feminine nature in itself, Larry. One never knows. You could do a survey of 1,000 women and find that, but that's that feminine side. It's also, if we go back for just a second, that zen that I talked about, the zen of cannabis, in finding what works for you at that time. So you're relating it back and you're remembering. It's a personal experience with the cannabis. And I know that sounds a little stretchy, but I think that once you're there, you spend time with it, you understand it, and you know how it works for your body, and there's not quite a term for it yet. So let's just call it Zen of cannabis. It works. You'll know when to say, no, I've had enough, or, you know what, tonight I need a little bit more. I'm going to do it again.
What
I'd like to talk tonight, just go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You want to talk? Go ahead. Keep talking.
Oh, okay. I want to just talk tonight about the economic issues between pharmaceuticals and cannabis for seniors. And it was a conversation I had with a colleague today. She is, and I love her to pieces, but she's very pro-pharmaceutical, and I don't try to preach to her, but I ask her a point-blank question. I said, what do you take, and how much a month do you spend on pharmaceuticals? And she started to count what she was taking. She rattled them off, and it came to be about $250 a month she was spending on pharmaceuticals. And I pointed out to her that when or if she begins to use medical cannabis, a lot of those issues she's taking individual drugs, pharmaceutical drugs for, she won't have to, because the cannabis addresses those issues by going, by combining forces, by going through the endocannabinoid system and making it work for her. Now, whether she makes that decision or not, that's totally up to her. But that's the biggest issue for seniors from an economic point of view, is how much are you spending a month? What are you giving up? What choices are you making that you have to get your pharmaceuticals? Are you giving up travel? Are you giving up better foods, healthier foods?
Mm-hmm.
What are you choosing not to do so that you can be ball and chain, so to speak, to the pharmaceutical companies?
Yeah,
and when we calculate that and we look at that,
I think that's.
We see that medical cannabis can address that.
I hadn't thought of
Go
that.
ahead.
I hadn't really thought of that before. That's a really great point. I know that a lot of people, be they seniors or not, are getting off of some of those pharmaceuticals by using cannabis. And every time I hear the naysayers say, cannabis is a gateway drug, I always say, yes, you're absolutely right. It's a gateway out of pharmaceuticals and hard drugs. People are getting off of heroin and meth and crack and Adderall and Ambien and Halcyon and all those terrible pharmaceuticals that just mess up your liver and your kidneys and your head. And so cannabis is a gateway out, and people can get off of those pharmaceuticals. So and that's really important. Like you said, if they can get off of that, then they've got funds for other things that will enhance their life and make them more comfortable. And so that's an interesting point that you made. I appreciate that.
Yes, and I think that's another draw. When I speak with seniors, we talk about economic issues. Most of them are on fixed incomes, and they want to have more choices. And the choices with medical cannabis is that you're feeling better. You're not in that fog anymore. And those are the points I like to emphasize with them, that you're able to balance, you're able to walk, you're able to carry things where before you were still in a daze and you were trying to balance and not fall or not be wobbly.
Mm-hmm.
And you're there because of medical cannabis. You're clear. Your brain is clear to go ahead and do the things you want to do. I've seen seniors who were unable to get out of chairs with assistance because of dizziness that they had, began to use medical cannabis, and a couple in particular ended up going back to square dancing.
Oh, wow.
Of all things,
Uh-huh.
because they mm-hmm.
What kind? That's square dancing. Great exercise for people that need to move around, and I know that a lot of people do that. And the cannabis would obviously help them sort of sidetrack them from their pain and so forth, and they can be able to go out and do things that they haven't been able to do for many years. So that's definitely a positive thing that the seniors can use it for, is to help them get motivated.
Mm-hmm. It really does, and it also helps them become connected.
Mm-hmm.
I began to see that seniors were meditating in isolation, and there'll be a blog on that. Sometimes I have to sort that through my brain as I'm writing about these issues. But it's not. But when seniors can begin to meditate together and in smaller groups, you find that there's have a shared experience, and then with that shared experience, they can go ahead and give each other suggestions, what they tried, what worked, what didn't work, things like that, and that cohesiveness builds community.
In Michigan, what's going on there now with the dispensaries? Are they did something new come down to where they're going to allow dispensaries? I know there's been a lot of controversy and back and forth in Michigan on the program.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've begun to call those Black Fridays because they always seem to come on a Friday afternoon or a Friday morning, and they begin to shut them down. We started MMJRadio on Facebook, so people could report, download videos, show what was going on, and listing what was happening with the dispensaries' closings. And that's based on the Christiana method. That Christiana has an alert system. Are you familiar with their plight?
No, I don't know anything about it. Tell me, please.
Well, Christiana is a community in Denmark, and it's a very free-thinking and accepting community. But what was going on is that the Danish police were being right outside their community and going in the subways, searching, stopping cars, arresting for cannabis. So what this website did was they began to alert it, the Facebook site, what they would do is they would put it on Facebook. They'd say, we have seen so-and-so here, be careful at this time. Mm-hmm. And it was a public knowledge, and if the police wanted to see it, then they would see it. But it just brought the information forward. And because of that, when we began to have the closings, and they were immediate and swift, they weren't, you need to close up, we're going to give you 30 days. It was boom, that day. So we began to go ahead and list what was there, who was open, where patients could go to. Because, Larry, my seniors, if you're beginning to learn about medical cannabis, you're not going to be, you may be lucky to have a caregiver right away. If not, you're going to be going to the dispensaries. And on that first Friday, I had so many phone calls from seniors crying, pleading, where do we go, what do we do? There was a 65-year-old little lady who had just received her card. She was starting chemo on Tuesday. She was going to go into the dispensary, and it was shut down.
Wow.
Here she is about to start cancer treatments, and she did everything she was supposed to do. She paid her fees. She paid for the doctor, and the state of Michigan took it away. They said, nope, it's a nuisance, and dispensary is a public nuisance, and they shut them down. That voided her right to obtain the medicine she needed so she could start the traditional chemotherapy.
Wow, that's just, it's not just Michigan, it's everywhere that the federal government is hassling, what is now being called access points, but dispensaries really are the word, is what it is, and ASA, which is for safe access, for patients, they're a very important organization, and that's what we're all fighting for. We're all fighting for safe access so that we don't have to go back on the streets. And of course, what when they close the dispensaries down like that in Michigan, where are they going to go? They're going to go back on the streets. So closing dispensaries in medical marijuana states is sending people to the black market where they don't know what the strains really are, if it's indica or sativa. They don't know, how good it is, whether it's got mold or any contaminants in it. So they're really doing a lot of harm when they take this safe access away from people. And that certainly has to change soon. So, Beth, I want to thank you. I'd like you to give out your contact information, your websites, your Facebook pages. I think it's very important that people spread the word about how cannabis can help seniors. I know there's a gentleman named Robert Platshorn out there who also has some senior stuff going on. He was touring around the country for a while. So give out your contact information so people can find you.
Absolutely, but I'd like to do a little a shout out first. Robert Platshorn he's wonderful. He has really started the senior movement. Everything that he's done and everything that has prevented him from going forward, he's just going to keep on going. So let me just put that out there. The second place I want to talk about is Cannalytics, and Cannalytics is a testing lab and connected to the R.C. Randall Center, They do wonderful work in Lansing, and they were very responsible for putting up on this My Canna Eye alert site what places were open, where they could find caregivers, things like that. And then the third place, Larry, is Michigan Compassion that we have. And Michigan Compassion works, provides support for patients of medical cannabis. Now, saying that, let me go ahead and give you my information. Senior Medical Cannabis on Facebook, seniormedicalcannabis.com. And what else did you want? I think those are the two big things.
Well,
Larry.
I just want people to be able to find you. I think you've been a great guest tonight, and a very important guest, because seniors out there, I'm going to be 63 this coming summer, and I don't feel like a senior, but I'm a senior. I get the discount when I go to the movies, so it's very important to get the word out and to help people.
Absolutely.
So Beth,
absolutely, I'm right there with you. I'm 56, and I think I'm in better shape than I ever have been. And if I can leave seniors with one issue tonight, Larry, and it's one of it's this concept of where are you going to go with your personal economics. These economic issues have to do at the personal level, have to do at the state level, and have to do at the global level. Where will we put our money? Where will we put our investments? And if that can be toward the medical cannabis or cannabis overall, then we know that we're operating in the right way, and that those are the things that are going to change the world.
Absolutely. Beth Fisher.
Thank you, Larry. I really appreciate.
My pleasure. Beth Fisher, thank you very much. Spread the word in Michigan that we're here every Saturday night at 9 o'clock Michigan time, 7 o'clock Mountain, and 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So thank you very much, Beth, for calling in today. And call back, and we'll set something up when you start your Canna tours, and I think it'll be very, very successful. So that's Beth Fisher from Michigan. We want to thank her for calling in and talking about seniors today, and we'll be right back.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me.
Wow, that was a very fast hour and very interesting, and I hope that Beth will come back to us in a few months and let us know about the trips to Denver and anything else that has to do with cannabis and seniors. We'll be back next week with another great show and a great guest. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I want to thank my two radio mentors, both with the initials HS, for their inspiration in the radio sphere. And don't forget to fcannabis.com, Bishop's Lodge, Wells Fargo, and it's on the tip of my tongue. Maybe next week I'll remember, but they know who they are. And feel well, everybody. We'll talk to you again.
Can make you feel much better. Yes, you medical, the marijuana for you and me. The medical marijuana.
Shalom. Shalom.
Feel well, everybody. Good night.